morning, you kooky cows over there. Buckle yourself into your spaceships, because we're going to blast off into outer space. Welcome to Respawn Aim Fire, the kick-ass irreverent gaming podcast, where three lifelong friends gather to talk about video games. I'm Chad Michael Innes. That's Holden DePardo.
Hello.
And you're you, the listener, the little reader of our novel that is life eternal. And that's why we love you.
Amen.
Amen.
Life eternal just sounded like such like a when I go to church as a kid. Well, I should say when I was forced to go to church as a kid. I just feel like they'd say that a lot. And the life eternal.
You found the force at church?
I found the force.
And also with you.
I was going to say something really bad.
Okay, yeah, let's not be more offensive than we can be today.
His last week was pretty bad.
What did we say last week?
We shouldn't repeat it.
Oh, God. Now I'm going to have to go back and listen to last week's episode. We've got a lot to talk about today. So much. We've got so many news story titles in here that I'm scrolling through. It might not be as long as your normal one, but we're going to cover them twice as fast. That's why. We've got that old kooky Joe Biden rearing his head in our industry. We've got that old kooky Crash Bandicoot rearing his head. We got that old kooky Crunch coming back around here, too. Is it Captain Crunch? Is it Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Is it Raisin Bran Crunch? Nope, it's the bad kind. But first, we're going to start...
I'm just picturing, like, the meeting. Like, guys, we got to announce that we're going to have to crunch in the studio. Like, crunchitize me, Captain. I'm sure is what no one says in response to that.
But we're going to start with talking about every type of Dark Souls-esque game that's ever existed and why Holden played all of them this week. Holden, take us off with playtime.
So, all right, a few things to say here. This is all going to tie in. But last week, Matt Vieira asked, what is our gaming New Year's resolutions? And I, at the time, said...
No, that was like 9 years ago.
Was it 2 weeks ago?
It was like 3 weeks ago.
Okay, he said it recently. in the not-so-distant past, said it. And... I'm still going to do Majora's Mask. It's absolutely still on the list. But I was like, you know what? I fucking loved Sekiro last year. And the only reason I didn't have it in my top 3 game of the year is because I didn't beat it. I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to beat that game this year.
Yes,
That's
you
what's
are.
going to happen.
I love it.
So I was playing Sekiro this week. I was always stuck on the Owl boss, which is kind of like one of... They're like, kind of like bosses that are almost
3
like...
licks, he bites right through your head.
What?
3 licks and he bites right through your head.
Yeah, that's not that owl.
Oh, okay. Mr. Owl.
That took me a second. Anyway, there are bosses that are kind of meant to be like, it's the only boss you can face right now. You have to beat this boss before it opens up again. It's like, a test of your skills, essentially. That's what I was looking for. And I was just stuck at him. That's why I stopped last year, because I couldn't beat him. And I fucking beat him.
Yes, you
this
did.
Week. And I'm so happy. I was literally like jumped up in my chair, so excited. And I just steamrolled through every other boss. I'm now on the final boss of the game. And I feel so good right now. But that boss is fucking hard as shit. Oh my God. It's ridiculous. You know how there's like the death blows you have to do, and there's like maybe 2 per boss?
Right.
So you go to the area where the final boss is. I won't spoil like what's exactly. I'm just going to talk about the death blows on this boss.
A lake of jello.
No. So you have to fight one dude with only 1 death blow, and I'm like, oh, that guy wasn't too bad. And then someone else comes with no break in between with 3 death blows. So essentially the final boss is 4 death blows, which means you got to be really fucking good to power through and not have to use a resurrection each life bar that they have.
Right.
And holy shit, it's just so fucking hard. But I got that itch of like, man, Soulsborne games, and I downloaded all of them. I downloaded Bloodbourne, I downloaded Dark Souls 3, I dabbled a little bit on my Switch actually with Dark Souls 1, and it's amazing going from Sekiro to Bloodborne and Dark Souls, because Bloodborne and Dark Souls are pretty closely aligned. Like, there's like the one big difference of there's no shields, you have to kind of dodge more and use your gun. And there's like the health mechanic in Bloodborne where you can get your health back by retaliating. Right. But like Sekiro, it's amazing how much different that game feels. Where it really is it's a good enough deviation from Soulsborne to feel like its own unique thing, but it's still absolutely a Soulsborne game. But also what has amazed me is the combat of Sekiro is so good, it felt really strange playing Dark Souls and Bloodborne. So now I'm really curious, what are they going to do with Elden Ring? Because know if Elden Ring's supposed to be like a spiritual successor to Dark Souls, but open world, kind of like how Demon's Souls was a predecessor to Dark Souls. But
I think
kind of aligned.
There's a rumor recently that Elden Ring is actually supposed to play more like Tetris or like Yoshi's Cookie.
And that's when they got George R.R. Martin for it, because he loves Tetris.
Right.
That'd be really funny. So now I'm like, can't wait to play Elden Ring. I'm just in a From Software mood. Shit, like those games are so good. But I played another Soulsborne game with you this week.
You did.
And Matt, and we played Remnants from the Ashes.
Remnants, from my ass.
At this point, everything else I played, we've played in common. So, what did you think of Remnants from the Ashes? Because that's your first time playing it.
It is my first time playing it. So it's on Xbox Game Pass, and it's a Soulsborne type game from, the name of the company escapes me, but it came out in like August of last year. Got a lot of really good reviews. I was like, man, I really want to play this. But the kind of unique twist of this one is that you can play the entire thing with 3 people. And it's not like in previous Souls games where you have to like call someone with a bell or something like that, and then they can only help you to the boss, and then they go away. And then you have to redo it in a new location as long as they haven't beat that location before. And this one is just straight up, you just jump into their game. It does have the same kind of pitfall that we discovered after playing for a few hours, that it all the progress is tied to my game and my character. And so when you guys went back to your worlds, you did not retain any of the same progress, other than like your character's level and gear, I assume.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have bothered me so much if it seemed like it'd be possible for you to join my game. I don't know what's wrong with my Xbox. I've checked the settings. It all looks good. But you can't see me as online to join my game even. So I got to power through those bosses on my own.
Forever offline. That's you.
I don't know.
Offline. Don't power through those bosses, because then you're going to be so much stronger than I am. I can't do any progression because then you guys miss part of the game.
So I guess just my save file is your save file, basically. We share a save file.
Yes, we share a save file, and no one's allowed to play anything.
It is a lot of fun, though. It's actually better than I thought it was going to be. It's very good mechanically, which is kind of my big concern, is that Soulsborne-style games have to feel mechanically good. Yep. Otherwise, you fall into that trap of, well, that wasn't my fault. That was cheap. Right. And this game definitely is not in that realm where it feels cheap. If you die, it's because, okay, we need to time our dodges better, and you can read the bosses, and actually, I'm sure you can play any of these bosses without getting hit once, because I'm sure you can read their animations that well. I got that feeling from it. Not that I'll ever be good enough to do something like that.
You'll be able to not die or get hit and play it with the Guitar Hero controller with your feet.
No. After we talk about playtime, I do want to mention one thing I saw this week that's really fucking awesome. But we'll keep going on this for a while. That just reminded me. Yeah, I really like it a lot. It's a really good game. It plays really well. It plays smoothly. It feels good to shoot a gun, which is important for a game like this.
Yeah, that's another big deviation. Like, Bloodbourne had guns in it, but they were really more of like a strategy type thing where you use them to stagger people and then you just go back to your melee weapon. Whereas Remnants from the Ashes is highly focused on gunplay. There are lots of different types of guns, shotguns. What's your guys' gun for your class called?
Oh, a coach gun.
Coach gun. We got a sniper rifle. There are handguns and pistols. So it's a pretty cool thing. And then you have like different mods you can put on those guns, which really just seem like skills. And the reason you put them on guns is a way to just like limit your number of them. I don't know. That part seems weird to me. But yeah, they start out with this class system that's, to me, feels needless a little bit, because you find out after you beat like basically the first boss that you can really have any of the skills that you want from any class, and any person can use any gun or armor, and there's not really any difference between anyone aside from which one you just start with. But that was helpful
because
aesthetic
difference, but that's about it.
But the aesthetic difference is really just an armor, right? And
just how you
can buy that armor, So
that's true. You could.
Yeah, it's a cool game. I'm excited to keep playing it. The one like minor complaint I have about it so far is that it's a straight up like poster child for Made in Unity. Like, looking at this game, all the character models and everything like that, it's like, oh my god, yeah, this is straight up, looks like it could be a really, really high-end mobile game, or like a kind of generic looking Unity game made for current gen stuff. and the limited enemy types so far that we've experienced don't really help that either. I feel like we've fought like 3 types of enemies, and they're all just the same version of each other with slightly different animations or things like that. But
it's some sort of wooden creature.
Right. Yeah, they're all the root, and they're all tied back to this tree. Yeah. So that part makes sense. But yeah, it's a really cool game. I'm having fun playing it. I'm excited to go back and play more with you guys throughout the weeks. Cool. Yeah.
I liked the art style of it. I totally hear you. As soon as you said it looks like a Unity game, I'm like, yeah, it really does look like a Unity game. That's definitely spot on. I think it's kind of like cel shaded almost, and I've always liked kind of a cel shaded art style. I think that's why I like Sea of Thieves art style, like Woodmaker's art style. But it is a little strange because when I think of Soulsborne games, I think of something that looks realistic and visceral. Yeah. And this doesn't necessarily have that look to it. But I think it makes up in the sense that the bosses are still pretty imposing. The ones that we've seen so far.
Yeah.
That I still kind of get that, like, oh no, here comes the boss kind of dread. That it evens out for me. But I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
About being a Unity game.
So yeah, I like it. Kiara. I wonder how long it is compared to those Souls-type games. Another thing that I wish was harder, I wish the exploring the different areas, like you get to a boss, and we certainly have banged our heads against a wall on the couple of bosses that we played so far a few times, but the actual areas that we're exploring, I wish were harder. That's what it is. I wish they were a little harder, and I'm missing the fear from Dark Souls games. I remember going Dark Souls games and Bloodbourne and Sekiro. I remember going through those caverns and hallways and things literally scared to poke my head around a corner and be fuck, what's around that corner? And whereas this one I'm running through, oh, bad guys popped up. Let's all just fucking beat him to death with a hammer and shoot him. Yeah. And we're just constantly running around and dodging. Whereas I miss the fear a little bit.
So I was thinking about that too, because I think a lot of that in Dark Souls games, and again Bloodborne and Sekiro, is that it's all close quarters combat. You got to get up close. You got to go where you don't want to go, which is right up in front of the enemy. Whereas this, because you're shooting, I'm so far away from them, and so many of them don't shoot back, that it just feels like I'm shooting mannequins as they come closer to me.
But there's still parts though in Bloodborne and Dark Souls where things will pop out of caskets or pop out of behind doors, and there's so much trickery and jump scares and things like that too that I'm not finding in this at all, aside from when they're hanging up on the ceiling and they drop down. But
even then you can get a skill, actually you already have the skill that will just show them to you.
Right.
Yeah good point.
But I am having fun with it, and I like it. Everyone go play that game so they make another one. Dude, it's on Game Pass. Just do it. We played more Rainbow Six Siege for game night this week. Man, we lost a lot. Still had a lot of fun with it, though.
We got a total defeat every single match, except the last one. And I think we decided to call it quits after that. Ended on a high note.
Yep. And then I dipped my little toe back into Destiny 2 again this week a couple times.
You don't play Destiny.
I do so much. I've started doing the quests to get exotic guns and stuff like that. After I clear out a shit ton of bounties for the day, whatever I've done, and I'm enjoying it. There's so many. The quests are so well designed too, and they go through. There's cool cutscenes and cool environments and cool mechanics that I didn't even know were in the game because they're buried in these quests. I dig that game a lot. And that makes me really excited for Destiny 3 on whatever next-gen systems is coming to. Hopefully Stadia exclusive. That's my guess.
Can you imagine? Oh, man, that'd be hilarious. It'd be a great get for Google. That would be so strange.
That's it. That's the rest of my life.
Cool.
Cool. Back to the fucking blue. Quote Pixar. Quote Finding Nemo. Back to that fucking blue, said the turtle. We're going to get into our fetch quest.
Crush the turtle.
Crush, that's right, and Squirt. You so totally rock, Squirt. That was the name of my turtle.
First you were like, whoa. Then you were like, whoa. Then you're like, whoa. One of my favorite lines from that whole movie.
True story. We had turtles when I was a kid.
And they said that all the time.
They said it all the time. No, there was Squirt, Fred, Booger, and... Oh shit! What was the last one? It was Mandy's turtle. I don't remember. But anyway, we had 4 turtles. All of them are gone now, but we don't know what happened to them.
Oh, I thought you meant like they passed away.
No. We had them in like a big 30-gallon tank in the house, and then it like got so big, and there were 4 turtles in there, and they got big. The turtles are one of those animals that will expand only as far as they can fit in their environment. So if you keep them in a tiny cage, they're going to stay tiny. If you keep them big, they're going to grow big.
That's why you don't put them in the ocean, because they just become so fucking huge.
Right? So then we built a pond out in the backyard. And we had like a big plastic tub that served as the base for the pond so they could go into it and cool off. We have like this gravelly area. And then we have it completely fenced off from the around it and on top so that birds can't get in there and steal them. And no idea where any of those turtles are. One day we're like, where are the turtles, man? They're down at the bottom of that pond. We drained the water from the pond. Nope. Those turtles, all 4 of them, they're gone, shells and all. I have no idea where they went.
That's actually really funny because you don't think of turtles as like escape artists. Like, quick, stop that turtle!
And I feel like
he's getting away.
We also have had at any given time like 2 or 3 dogs at my parents' house too. So that like if they escaped that little cage, they would then be in the backyard that's fenced in with the dogs running around. So like that turtle would have shown up somewhere with the dogs tearing it to pieces. But no, nothing. They just evaporated. Speaking of things evaporating, the Uncharted movie is not coming out anytime soon. It's delayed again for seemingly the billionth time, says Tanner Pierce at Dual Shockers. Surprise, fucking surprise. It does now have a release date of March 5th, 2021, after it lost its 6th director. But yeah, still hold out that this is not coming.
I'm just gonna throw this in there. At this point, I'm like getting more and more like probably not a good sign. But my voice like super cracked there. I said it like it was pubescent or something.
You sound like mine and Jesse's goose noises.
It's only a 3-month delay, which means they have some semblance of confidence that this is still moving along. Otherwise, they're gonna have to delay it in like a few months again. Yeah. And I'll laugh my ass off if that happens. But it's only a 3-month delay. We'll see what happens.
It's going to happen.
The next delay has to be much more indefinite, or just at least a year later. Like indefinite meaning they don't give it a date. Like we're just going to take our time with this, but they can't do like it's actually coming out in April and then May, and they just keep pushing it back month by month.
Here's what I think it is: they finally have like bagged Tom Holland. He is Nathan Drake, according to this movie. He's got some kind of contract. And they in the past have had like Mark Wahlberg attached to it and all these kind of things. But now that they've actually got Tom Holland, they're like, fuck, we have to make this now. We can't just say like, oh, we're looking at this actor. We've got this director on board and we're thinking about this. Like, no, we've got Tom Holland. He's hot right now because he's Spider-Man. We have to actually do something with this, and we weren't prepared. Fuck. Okay, it's still coming. It's coming. It's just in March now, and we're just giving ourselves 3 extra months to think of whatever the fuck we're gonna do with it. That's my theory.
I mean, the script must be written. They just have to shoot it at this point. I imagine a movie like this can be largely done with practical effects.
Well, the
which
script
requires a lot of planning.
The script can be written by now, but whatever director they bring on board has then got to review the script to make sure it's a movie he wants to make, and he's going to change the script to meet whatever he wants to do and all that kind of stuff. So
scripts don't take that long to read, though. You can literally read a script in a single sitting. They're not that complex.
No, but they take that much to rewrite. Of course it doesn't take that long to read it.
But I'm saying is I think in this case they're just going to say, here's the script. If you don't like it, director, we'll find someone who does. They're not going to do rewrites of the script if it's coming out March 5th next year.
Well, that's probably why they're running into trouble, because they can't find any directors who like the script.
Well,
every Half-Life game is free to play until April 1st, says Matt Kim at IGN. If you are on Steam, both Mac and personal computers, you can play Half-Life for free till April 1st. Do it. Do it, you coward. Just do it! Speaking of free, or free with subscription, Xbox Game Pass for console is receiving new batch of games starting tomorrow, says Nick Biazzo at GameRanks. This is already available for some of these. A Plague Tale Innocence is already available. That's one I gotta play. I'm going to download that
Yeah.
tonight. I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open up this Xbox Game Pass app on my phone. First of all, shout out to the Xbox. Shout out. Sorry. That was a Easy Allies thing that popped up in there in my mouth. Shout out to the Xbox Game Pass app. And it sends you notifications like, hey, make sure you play these 3 games because they're going away at the end of the month. I'm like, oh, cool. I guess I do want to hop in and do that. Or it sends you, it says, hey, Plague Tale Innocence is now available. I'm like, oh, fuck, that's a good I want to download that right now.
And they let you know, too, when it's done installing. They're like, hey, like when I said, hey, I give them the notification to install The Witcher as soon as it's available. And like they send me a notification like, hey, just so you know, The Witcher started downloading. Hey, just so you know, The Witcher's done downloading. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
You don't see that very often.
And look at that. I tap Plague Tale Innocence. I hit install on Xbox, and then I just get an error, and it says, oops, we weren't able to retrieve install status for this game. Resecute us in your queue. Whatever that means. But you're also getting...
is great.
It's great.
It's great.
Also getting Indivisible, which is a game, I guess. Sea Salt, which is, I can only assume, the sequel to Aquaman set in the Salt starring Angelina Jolie universe. And it's their kid, Angelina Jolie and Jason Momoa's kid, Sea Salt, coming January 30th.
I was going to say, it's a trilogy of games where the narrative continues on. You play Sea Salt, and you play Pepper, and then it just wraps up in Paprika. Right.
Yes, Blue's Clues. Fuck yeah, dude. Good reference. Fishing Sim World Pro Tour also comes on January 30th. Next up, Alan Wake has returned to the Xbox Marketplace, says Logan Moore at Dual Shockers. He's back. Alan Wake has returned. It was mysteriously gone for a little bit. So if you like Control, go back and try that out. And you know what? I wonder if that's on Game Pass. Let me open up my Xbox Game Pass app and let that fail at downloading too. Alan Wake. Nope, not on there. And then last fetch quest here before we get into some rooms. We have Kojima Productions is planning to work on multiple projects, including one, quote, big game, says Eric Van Allen at US Gamer. Kojima has said that he wants to branch out and do things that are different than what he's always done, and he's thinking of doing small titles that could be episodic or digital only, and I think that would be dope. I would love to have something big to go back to and play every once in a while, like in the style of a Metal Gear or a Death Stranding or something like that. Mm-hmm. But then I would love to see what an episodic Kojima game looks like. And I want him to go full, because even starting from Metal Gear Solid 1 with the like cinematic intro and the credits and all that kind of stuff over top of the cutscenes, and like, if you gave him control over something like Quantum Break, I bet he would absolutely go apeshit with it, and it would be so fascinating.
I'm more excited for like whatever a digital only game would be, because I appreciate the experimentation of Death Stranding, but it's so huge, it's daunting that I don't want to keep going anymore. Whereas I feel like I'd love to see a small experimental title from Kojima that I can just play for like 2, 3, maybe 4 hours and then get the idea behind it. I want to see like what he can do in like one of those like one sitting games or like an evening game. I like to see what he can do with that. And then of course, I'm sure his big game will get a lot of attention when it gets announced.
New from Kojima Productions, an evening game.
An evening game.
Next up, we're going to talk about some rumors. Rumor has it. Oh, we should get Adele on this podcast.
I have her number. I'll call her up and ask her.
Why have we not thought to do that before?
I know. It seems we hang out with her like every weekend when we were in Chicago. Because she lives in Chicago.
That's what it is. We both moved away from Chicago and we lost contact with Adele. First rumor up, and God, I hope this is true. The Order 1886 may be getting a sequel for PS5 and Xbox Series X. This is an article from Laddie Simcoe at Dual Shockers. This comes from a NeoGaf thread, so you can take that with a grain of salt. But it's basically the studio Ready at Dawn, who had made the PSP God of War games before, and then they did 1886. They are not a Sony studio. They are not a Sony-owned worldwide studio. So it's not necessarily just a PlayStation thing, and it looks like it might be coming to Xbox Series X. I hope this is true, because I think Order 1886 is one of those completely underrated games. Everyone wrote it off because it was so short, and because some of the mechanics weren't great, but the cinematic nature of it and the way that it looks and the storytelling and all that kind of stuff was so fucking cool. And I think nobody bought that game. And there have been so many times when it was like $4 on PSN, and you should 100% pick it up and put 5 hours into it. But it was really cool.
Every time I think of that game, I go, I own it. I need to play it. And I'm just going to add it to my official backlog list in the GG app.
Yeah, do it, dude. What have you not been doing with that game for the last 5 years?
Well, I've only had it for like 2, I think. But that doesn't make it better. What have I been doing for the past 2 years is the new question. Bad things. Not playing Oil 1866.
Things.
1886.
1886. I want it to be called The Order. 1885? Question mark. Nope. It's the future. 1886. Still, but 3 months later than it was before. I want that to be the whole title.
The biggest cash grab title they could do is The Order 2077.
Next rumor coming up, we have Konami has 2 Silent Hill video games in development, says Dennis Patrick at GameRanks. Aesthetic Gamer, which is just another way of saying, I'm a hot gamer, tweeted his insights. And apparently Konami has reached out to third-party developers for 2 potential pitches. It wants people to pitch 2 games. One would be a soft reboot for the franchise, and the one would be an episodic title. I don't know whether that means like in the vein of a Telltale type thing, or whether it would be like an RE Revelations type thing.
They specifically mentioned like Until Dawn or Telltale kind of style games. Later, I didn't put in the notes here, but just before we started recording, there was an update to this. The Aesthetic Gamer tweeted and just said, hey, this is just something that I heard a few years ago, and then someone reiterated it from another studio a few months ago. I don't know if the games are still being worked on at all. But he says he's not referencing like the what are they called, the slot machines, like that kind of stuff. Like he's talking about 2
They're called pachinko
games.
Machines.
It wasn't a slot machine.
There's a pachinko machine, and it is the pinnacle of entertainment. True story. I don't think I've ever played a Silent Hill game.
I would like to, but I haven't either.
I feel like maybe I played like 10 minutes of one on my PSP a long-ass time ago, but I don't think I've actually played a Silent Hill game.
All right, sorry. I'm on the Orders GG page right now to add it to my list.
Yeah.
What do you think its star rating is? Speaking of underrated.
Oh, I forgot you could rate games on there now. Probably like 1.5 or 2.
Literally 1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. Well, that's not fair because right now only elite members on the GG app have the ability to rate things, so they're paying for that privilege. So I'm sure it's a very small
so
section.
elitist.
I know, right? Next up, Capcom killed Resident Evil 8 development last year, says Dennis Patrick at GameRanks. Again, this is a rumor. Also from Aesthetic Gamer, that hot-ass gamer on Twitter. I'm so hot. Hansel is so hot right now. The current version of RE8 has been in development for, quote, 6 to 7 months. And prior iterations have been in production going back as early as 2016. 6 to 7 months. I think that would mean that they probably saw, if I were just guessing, they probably saw what happened with RE2 and how that set the world on fire. And they're like, fuck. Mm-hmm. We were going based off of Resident Evil 7, which, again, did really great, set the world on fire. And was like, thank God, it's back to its roots. But then they saw what RE2 did, and everyone's like, well, fuck, how do we put that into a new Resident Evil game? Let's go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. I think that's a good way of looking at it, absolutely. I think on top of that, too, this is mentioned in the article, but I think it's worth reiterating. 6-7 months for development, they still probably are going to utilize some of the assets that they've already created.
Oh, sure.
So I'm sure that's going to shorten the development time. I think at this point it's clear this is definitely going to be a next-gen title at this point. I'd be shocked if it wasn't, which is also very exciting. But I'm kind of glad that, and I'm hoping what you're saying is true, because I really would like them. If I were to pick RE2 or RE7, I would pick RE2.
Me too.
And I'd much rather them go in that direction. I think first person was a cool experiment with RE7, and it worked well because the PSVR. I would prefer to have a character like Leon or Claire, not them specifically, but like some character that's like feels more a part of the game than the main character.
Right. You're going to look at somebody's butt the whole time.
I want to look at someone's butt the entire time.
Because zombies, like, they're cool to shoot and shit like that, but also I need a butt to look at.
Yeah. So can you imagine how ridiculous the gore engine is going to be in that game on next-gen consoles? Like, holy shit. It already looked disturbingly real Oh god, that game's gonna be really unsettling and creepy.
I can't freaking wait.
I don't. This didn't bother me at all either because Resident Evil, like in terms of like, I figured this game was going to be coming out next year before this is announced.
Yeah.
Or not announced, but rumored. I'm okay with it because RE2 is so good. I'm sure RE3 is going to be also very good. I'm good. The two really good RE games. I mean, I'm assuming the next one's going to be good at least. Back to back. I'm cool with that. I think they can even take like another year off, 2 years maybe.
At this point, they've had
great.
What year did Resident Evil 7 come out? Because at this point, I think they've had a yearly release. Yeah, so they've had a yearly release. Oh no, because I guess 2018 then would be an empty year for them.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
I really want to go back to RE6. I think that's the pinnacle of Resident Evil from everything I've heard from the fans.
Well, RE5 definitely sold the most, so...
I'm kidding.
RE5 was fun, though. Playing co-op, that was so cool. We should play that. I do want to go back.
I'd be down.
I have RE4, 5, and 6 on my PlayStation because I do want to eventually... I never played 6, but I do want to eventually go back and play through all those.
Yeah. I was being facetious earlier. I have no interest in RE6 at all, but RE5 I do have a mild curiosity about, even though I've heard it's more action-oriented.
Oh my god, have you seen Chris Redfield's arms in that game? Oh my god. Next up, we're going to move to our Microsoft Quest log. We're going to scoot on down. We're going to do a little grapevine over to Microsoft land, and we're going to talk about Xbox Studio Ninja Theory, revealing experimental horror title Project Mara. Says Alex Calvin at PC Games Insider. This all stems from a 7-minute video that Ninja Theory put out last week that I think everybody should go and watch. It mainly touches on 3 things. Ninja Theory talks about, it's their first Dreadnaught Diaries, is what they're calling these series of videos. And they talk about Hellblade 2 first. They show the same trailer. I feel like it was 100% the same trailer, right?
Yeah, 100% the same trailer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think that there was anything added to it. But yeah, they talk about Hellblade 2. They talk about their mental health project that they unveiled a few months ago and how they're working to make mental health initiatives through video games. And then they talked about their newest project called Project Mara. And they showed off a couple of like basically concept art type things. And what they showed off, those environments are always easy to make look really fucking good whenever you don't have like people and facial animations and stuff like that. But all of those environments were all in-engine footage, and it looked stunning. So yes, they described this new game as an experimental game with a focus on mental horror, and they want to make these experiences as true to life and what someone who's experiencing them in real life mentally would feel like. So, again, go back and watch that full 7-minute video. It is totally worth the watch.
Absolutely. I have the feeling that this game is going to come out before Hellblade 2.
Do you think so?
I think so. I think this is going to be one of the Xbox exclusive games that is cross-generation, and Hellblade 2 will be their first project that's actually a Series X exclusive game. When Phil Spencer showed off Hellblade 2, he made specific mention that this is a game in early development, and that game just looks, if we're to believe that really is running an engine, which I believe it is, it looks so fucking good graphically. I just would have a hard time seeing how they could just transition that into a cross-gen title. It feels like it's a pure next-gen title. Whereas this, you're right, the environments do look really, really good. Her face does not look as good as it does in Hellblade, and it's the same actress. So it's the same studio, and it's the same engine, presumably. So, like, if it doesn't look as good as the next-gen, what I'm assuming is the next-gen game that they just showed off at the Xbox Series X reveal, I feel like this is coming sooner rather than later, like maybe but at least by the end of 2021, because that would be when they cut off at least all their titles being cross-gen.
Yeah. I want to have a quick little discussion about whether or not you feel like these games are still going to be Xbox exclusive titles. Take a little trot with me. Mm-hmm. Hellblade 1, Ninja Theory, comes out first exclusively on PS4.
Yeah.
And then it eventually does come to PC as well, with the VR version being exclusive to, I think it was Oculus. Or no, it's only on Steam. It was only on Steam.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's got exclusivity roots elsewhere. And then finally it did come to Switch eventually and Xbox as well, and came on Game Pass. But my thought is that, one, Hellblade 2 might have already been in development before they were bought, and Xbox usually is good about honoring, hey, if you've got contracts to come out on other things already, that's fine. They've also shown that with Minecraft, they're still willing to support development of their first-party titles on other things. They've shown with Ori and the Blind Forest that they're willing to release things on Switch. And I would think that this studio, Ninja Theory, and like the social good that they're doing with this game, I would think they want this to reach as many people as humanly possible. And the only way you do that is by releasing it everywhere. And if this is something that, yes, it would be a first-party developed and funded title, but it's something that with their strategy of like, not necessarily their words, but everyone's kind of assumption is we don't care where you play our game as long as you play our game, kind of philosophy that Xbox seems to be going with. I don't know. I feel like I could see them making both Hellblade 2 and Project Mara available in a wide release.
PS5 as well?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't think so. I disagree, because they have another title. And I'm surprised they didn't mention this title in the Dreadnaught Diaries. They're also making Bleeding Edge.
Oh, that's right.
Game. And that is Xbox only. That's going to be Xbox and PC only. It's not coming to PS4.
That's so like the Melee version of Overwatch, right?
Yeah, it's like a character-based shooter, yeah. But sorry, it's Melee. Not you were saying. I was thinking Melee Smash Bros. But it's something about character-based. It's gonna be Melee, yeah.
Coming in just 2 months, March 24th.
Focused. But my point is that Hellblade, yes, did come to Switch, but they had acknowledged that at the time that's only happening even though it's owned by Xbox now, because that had already been in motion. Right. And they'd already been working on that. I don't doubt that like something like Bleeding Edge maybe was in development for PS4 at some time, because clearly that game was in development before Microsoft bought them. But if that game is going to be Xbox only, I'm assuming their next projects are going to be Xbox only as well. The only thing you not consider though is you're kind of saying the social aspect to it,
right?
Like
Bleeding Edge has nothing to do with their mental health initiatives.
No, not at all. So maybe like depending on what that mental health initiative is and what Project Mara ends up being. Yeah, I can maybe. I don't know. I'll have to see. I don't know if I'm fully on board with that. But I think Hellblade 2 is for sure going to be Xbox only. And they pitched it as like, look at what the Xbox can do. Yeah. And then for like a year later to be like, here's another trailer. By the way, also not coming to only the Xbox, coming to PS5 as well, or competitor. I feel like they want this to be like a tentpole game. And people go, ooh, I want to play Hellblade on the Xbox because that's the only place I can play it.
Damn it, now I got to get a Series X.
Or a Series S, who knows?
No.
I don't even need all that power.
No, if I'm buying a new Xbox at launch, it's going to be the beefy one. Speaking of buying new things at launch, we're moving on to our Sony Quest log, and there is the VR publisher that claims that Sony will release PlayStation VR 2 with PlayStation 5, says Brianna Reeves at PlayStation Lifestyle. There's a VR publisher named Immersive VR Education. Developer of Apollo 11 is the most, I think, recent game that they've created. And they stated in their yearly projections, quote, 2020 will see Sony release the PlayStation 5 and a new version of the PlayStation VR headset, PSVR, which will further expand the high-end VR user base. The group intends to support this device with its current suite of showcase software. Previously, Sony has already acknowledged that the head of research and development at Sony has already acknowledged that releasing both a new PlayStation and a VR headset would be making a mistake. They didn't want to bombard their people with so much new hardware.
Yeah. I don't buy this.
It is an unlikely source that people who made Apollo 11 immersive VR education studio like would really be the ones to like break this news. But I got to thinking, and with PlayStation VR, with VR in general being such a small subsection of gamers or people who even have any kind of, like, not necessarily just gamers, because there are people who don't game who have VR headsets. With 106 million PlayStation 4s out there and just 5 million, it's less than 5%, 5 million PlayStation VRs, I don't know if it would be a mistake to release a PSVR 2 because they would already they'd literally be marketing it to like tens of thousands of people if they want it, like right at launch. And I think that there are tens of thousands of people, myself included, who would be like, you know what? I do want a next-gen VR experience to go with my next-gen PS5 that I just bought. And I'm excited to get in on the ground floor, just like I was excited to, like, when I got my PSVR, technically 2 days early, thank you, Best Buy, from its initial release date. So I don't know if I'm really... If you had asked me before this story came out, I would have been like, no, yeah, of course they're not going to release them both at the same time. But if they're not expecting to sell a ton of them, why not release it? And then by the time they're ready to push it as like, hey, PlayStation 5 has been out for a little bit and we're ready to push this new hardware, do a little bit of a sale, maybe a price reduction of $100 off or whatever the new one's price is going to be, and then do a huge marketing push when they're ready to push those numbers higher. And then they also have word of mouth and all of these studios who have already been releasing titles for it, so there's a backlog of things for people to play. I don't know if it would be the biggest mistake in the world if they release it at the same time.
Well, it's already going to have a backlog of content to play because it's already going to have access to all the PSVR content that already exists. So it'll already kind of have that. And I'll say, like, if any source could make me go, maybe, it would be a studio who is telling their investors, hey, we are working on projects that will be coming out on this system this year, and we expect to be making money. They cannot, like, legally, they cannot lie to their investors. So, like, I don't think that they're being disingenuous. Maybe this new version of the PSVR headset isn't like a VR2, and the communication's not very clear. I don't know, but, like, I totally hear what you're saying. I think the flip side of that would be, yes, the PSVR isn't selling as well as a PlayStation 4 is. It's a smaller market, but that might be the reason to have it wait so it has its own launch. They can treat it as and make sure that all the focus is on that. Because I think there's a chance that if they do release them at the same time, there's zero chance the PSVR could take any light away from the PS5, but the PS5 could absolutely put the PSVR in the shadows. So I don't know. It's really tough. I feel
that's
like
what I'm saying.
Sony
Like, don't even do a marketing push for it at launch. Maybe be like, hey, there's a cool new VR headset that's only available on PS5, but save your marketing push for when the market's more saturated with PlayStation 5s.
Mm-hmm.
And let the story be about PS5 at launch, for sure.
Yeah. But then you can run into some, like, it could create a perception of, oh, well, Sony doesn't have a lot of faith in the PSVR because they just kind of put it out there without any, like, marketing buzz or anything like behind it. It's just really risky, I think, to do that, especially when this is a platform they want to grow and expand. There could easily be created the perception that Sony doesn't care for the PSVR. Like, usually, like, looking at, like, a movie studio, for example, I've heard this for, like, I know this is not exactly comparable, but it's kind of, at least, it makes sense as an analogy for me. Thinking about how some writers of television shows for Netflix talk about Netflix and how Netflix has treated their shows. And they'll be, like, really frustrated that Netflix didn't promote that show at all and just, like, put it on the platform for it, to die, essentially, because no one knew that it was there, and how that can kind of be frustrating for that writer, because it makes that writer, at least how they've talked about that, the writers usually talk about how it makes it feel like Netflix just didn't have faith in their show. And I feel like to grow PSVR, they need to demonstrate they have faith in it. And I don't know if that would be the best way of doing it. But then again, it's like, my head's in a knot now. I don't buy it because I don't personally see it that way, but this is, like, the best possible evidence that you could have for it. So I'm like, I still don't buy it, but, like, I totally can see. I wouldn't now be surprised if it did come out this year, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of more PS5 news, there's a rumor that the PlayStation 5 UI has leaked online. It's from Dennis Patrick at GameRanks. There's a photo going around on 4chan, actually multiple photos. Did you see the one that also includes the system itself?
No. Oh, yeah, I did see that, yes.
Yeah, it's like not the dev kit with the V, but also like an actual streamlined looking possible production unit. It looks like if these are to be believed, the UI looks very similar to the PS4 UI. There's still the same square icons going horizontally across it. They've got one for what looks like games, one for settings, one for Quake. You have your own dedicated thing for Quake. and then one for the PlayStation Store. It looks like maybe. And then, up top, you've got notifications, you've got friends, you've got the time, the day. Like, it looks like they very heavily are dipping into PS4 for inspiration. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, honestly, PS4 is pretty simple for me to navigate versus when I go on my Xbox and I scream at it for 3 minutes trying to figure out where the fuck my games are. So that if this is to be believed, which I think it's possible, it's definitely still like an early version of like all of the names of it. Like systems is named like NPS X500 or whatever, and games is named something similar. Like things are still app_home parentheses data, but I think this could be a good early first impression of what the PS5 UI might actually look like.
Yeah, this looks very believable. Anyone can make like a photoshopped image as like a concept art and like put it up there, but this doesn't look like someone who would do that. Someone who would do that wouldn't put NPX, S384. Like they would make it look like it's an official, like ready for consumer screen. So it definitely looks like something that's for testing. A lot of the icons just match what I already see on a PS4. The Friends icon is identical to the point where I buy it. It doesn't look like a knockoff that like someone was trying to replicate it and they couldn't. It looks like the official one. So like it looks legit. I think the interesting thing, and I'm sorry if I drew a blank and didn't hear you say this, but the terabyte of storage allegedly.
Oh, that's right.
Screenshot.
Yes.
It says free space is 891.541 gigabytes. So we had talked about about what the SSD size was going to be. We've discussed that.
We talked about it on the Pixel Street podcast this week.
We did.
With those boys over there. Those little boys.
And yeah, I think that a terabyte would make sense. That's kind of what they seem to be showing here. It's a dev kit, I'm assuming, so it's hard to say that's actually what the shipping model is going to be. I can see why they might want to ship a dev kit with a lot more storage in it than what would come in the unit, because, like, for example, you want to test out 10 different versions of the game. You just create 10 different builds and load them all onto the system. You would need more storage to kind of accommodate for things like that. It's like maybe I'm totally speculating. I don't have development experience in that realm, so I'm kind of talking on my ass there. But like that would make sense to me.
I don't remember whether it was this article or something else I was reading online. One of the justifications for why this might actually be the real thing is that as they get closer to launch, they want the dev kits to reflect what's actually going to be there for all sorts of testing purposes. Like if there's going to be a terabyte of storage in the shipping hardware, they want to make sure that they're testing, all right, what happens when I reach that limit internally? Does the whole thing just shut off and fail? There's that PlayStation bug where as soon as you reach like 2,000 friends, all of your online functions start like completely fucking up. Like those kind of things.
Really?
You wouldn't know what happened. Yeah, that happened. There was something famous that Greg Miller like had issues with years ago.
That's funny.
It's one of those things.
Too popular. Get less friends.
Too popular. You want to be able to test these real world things, and I think that we are close enough to them revealing the hardware that I think a terabyte being in a dev kit is close to what we're seeing. I also think that every PS4 Pro already comes with a 1 terabyte. Some models have the 2 terabyte in them as well. That like I think 1 terabyte is safe to assume by now for next gen. I think you and I were talking though. I would love at launch a 2 terabyte option. I don't know if we're going to get it. I think it's going to be one SKU, but I would love right off the bat, especially if it's not expandable or if it's not easily expandable with external storage.
That's exactly it. Yeah,
I would love 2 terabytes, and I would pay.
That would be
premium.
like if they did 256 or 500, it would be insulting considering the 100 gigabyte discs that are going to be available for PS5 games. If they're expecting these games to be huge.
I mean, and if you think about every single, they give you 512, but 95 of that is the system itself, and then those fucking things where like, oh yeah, you have to download a 40 gigabyte game. Well, you actually have to have 80 gigs available to download the 40 gigabyte game because it's got to get there and then unpack and all that kind of shit. It's like there are so many limitations of storage that I don't think they could possibly do 512. That would literally leave you with like 2, maybe 3 games. Yeah,
and on that note, and to kind of combine the 2 points we just mentioned there, that they have the hardware there for testing purposes, and they have the 1 terabyte of storage for a reason we just mentioned. Having the dev kits have the standard 1 terabyte drive that's going to be shipping could also allow Sony to get some feedback on how that hard drive performs, especially if this is a custom-made SSD. They want to have the hard drive that's going to ship with the PS5 testing, not a smaller or larger version of that hard drive. They need to make sure that specific size is working well because they need to remanufacture them. So yeah, that all makes sense. I'm swayed. I was a little skeptical. I'm swayed.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? That reminds me of when this 100% backs up that theory. Do you remember that there were certain, I think it was like on certain iMacs, a 3 terabyte version of the Fusion drive would fuck up, and they had like a quality or replacement program for them. So like you have to make sure that the specific one you're going to be using is working. Because like the 2 was fine, the 4 was fine, but if you had a 3 terabyte version, then it fucked up.
Yeah, because they had a different size SSD for the 3 terabyte version, and like it was the communication between that hard disk and that SSD. I think that was the issue. Yeah, I remember that.
Moving on to our Nintendo Quest log, we've got 3 little baby stories in here. One of them is saying Nintendo can continue preventing cancellation of pre-orders in Germany, says Rebecca Valentine, GamesIndustry.biz. Nintendo just won a lawsuit in the Norwegian Consumer Council. Sorry, I'm going to back up. Nintendo won a lawsuit against the Norwegian Consumer Council.
Sorry, just that sound.
Attempting to allow consumers to seek refunds on the eShop for pre-orders. This is something that that until recently, if you ever pre-ordered something digitally on most storefronts, it was just commonplace that like, cool, you pre-ordered this on PSN, you pre-ordered this on eShop, you don't get the option of a refund. Even if you cancel it and the game's not coming out for like 6 months, you don't have that option. Recently, that turned a corner, however, and now like I think PlayStation has, as long as you haven't downloaded it yet, or it's been within 2 weeks or something like that. And it looks like Nintendo did just win and say, hey, no, you cannot refund your eShop pre-orders, at least in Germany. The Norwegian Consumer Council is, however, seeking an appeal, so we'll see if that changes. Just another example of Nintendo being behind the times.
I think they need to adopt Sony's policy. I think Sony has the fairest policy because I totally understand that if you preload the game, you could easily, if you know what you're doing, take the file off the Switch, load it onto your PC, do whatever shit you want with it, and then return the game before it officially comes out. And you could do this up to depending on when they release the preload, up to 2 weeks before, potentially the game even comes out. So like that it puts those companies in a bad spot. But I think Sony does it the most fair. I would like to see that become the industry standard because I think a lot of people are looking at this as, oh, they're being so hostile to their customers. And it's not so much they're being hostile to customers, they're trying to protect their property. Right. And I understand that. I think that Nintendo has a track record of not being so nice to customers, but lately, like with like the Metroid Prime 4 announcement, like, hey guys, it's not good, we're holding it back, like shows that they do care about customers. I don't want to go as far as say they don't care about customers, but I think they need to just straight up completely steal Sony's policy. It's the best way of doing it.
Yeah. Do you know off the top of your head like what Xbox's, if you buy it from the Microsoft store, like what their refund policy is?
I don't know. I have no idea.
I assume it's good just because they're such a consumer-friendly company right now. So
Phil Spencer will come to your house and gouge your eyes out if you try to get any refunds. It's very... Just
come in with an ice pick and squish your eyes.
What do you mean you don't want Crackdown 3? Those reviews were great.
Oh my god. Woof McDuck. Our next 2 stories are about potential Smash characters. Last week we talked about Sakurai and his stupid-ass event revealing another Fire Emblem character, but also revealing that 6 more characters are coming in the next 2 years to Smash. The first story is Doom director says the team has, quote, bantered with Nintendo asking for Doom Guy in Smash Bros. This comes from Ryan Craddock at Nintendo Life. There's an interview with Marty Stratton upon Avon. Sorry, that was a little mashup of his name and Shakespeare's birthplace. From id Software, he claimed that they asked Nintendo about making Doomslayer a character in Smash. That has been rumored for a trillion years.
Yep.
That Doom Guy is going to be in there.
We now know that they've been asked, though. And obviously it would be okay. They won't run into any legal issues, which is cool. And this is one of those things where if Smash is a celebration of gaming, then listening to what fans want to be the next Smash character is probably important.
Yep.
AKA, not another Fire Emblem character.
Not another fucking Fire Emblem character.
I would be surprised if this is not in the next 6.
I would love to have Doomslayer in there. and see him glory kill Isabel and just fucking rip her in half.
That's the thing. What are they gonna have Doomslayer do? He's gonna have a chainsaw and he just like chainsaws Mario in half. You see like blood flying everywhere. Like, what is his character gonna be like?
You know his final smash is gonna be a BFG.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yep.
Yeah. It's gotta happen. This has been. It's not even been rumored so much. It's just been so heavily demanded. I feel like they have to do it.
Yeah. And there's 6
I think
of them.
they might. Yeah, there's 6 of them. Yeah, I think they might have even opened up 6 more because they're like, the characters we're working on are cool characters, but like people are asking for these, and fuck it, people will buy them. So let's just continue development for another year and release 6 more characters.
Yep. Next
There's
up,
one more though.
There's one more. This one's a rumor. Crash Bandicoot is the next character for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, says Jordan Biazzo at GameRanks. Twitterer Mandycan. Why is that funny? I don't know. Mandycan said, quote, Crash comes directly after the first Challenger Pack. Wink face. Winky emoji.
Solid source.
Solid source from a Twitterer named Mandycan. Well, is Mandycan relevant in the rumor community?
Yeah, she's made some rumors before, but I haven't gone back to like look at the veracity of them necessarily. But
okay.
This is another one though. Like, I don't know if she knows anything about the next Smash character or not. But Crash is one of those characters where if you're doing a celebration of gaming, Crash seems like a character you might want to have.
Yep. Celebration of Gaming. He's owned by Activision, not by Sony. So that's totally like up for grabs. You don't have to worry about working with them. It's also, that game sold super fucking well. The Crash Bandicoot trilogy remastered, like especially in the UK. I think it was on the top of the UK charts for like 10 months or something like that. Yeah, that sounds like it's ripe for Smash.
Yeah. The only hesitation I'd have, and I don't even really buy this hesitation because I don't really know if Sony's ever going to make another Battle Royale game. Well, All-Stars Battle Royale, which will probably have to change the name of at this point.
Yeah, because Battle Royale means something very different now.
Yeah. They would have to have Crash in that game. It would be like Mario not being in Smash Bros. So like if Crash comes to Smash, which seems more likely to me still, Sony just can't make All-Stars. They just can't make it.
I 100% think we'll never see another PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale ever again.
Yeah, I like it.
Although how
but
cool,
yeah.
I did like it. I played on my Vita a lot. How cool was it to have Nathan Drake fighting a fucking Big Daddy from BioShock? Like that was super cool. We're going to move on to a third-party quest log where we get a little bit more serious and a little bit exhausted. We're going to talk about Joe Biden recalls Silicon Valley game developer as, quote, little creeps. From DualShockers, Ben Bayless says, during a New York Times interview with Joe Biden, he was quoted on his experience in Silicon Valley. He says, quote, and at one point, one of the little creeps sitting around that table, who was close to a billionaire, who told me that he was an artist because he was able to come up with games to teach you about how to kill people. End quote. The reporter pushed and asked if he was referring to video games, and in response he said, yeah, video games. From reading that entire article about Joe Biden, it seems that like one guy was a jerk to him, and Joe Biden's like now has a vendetta against all video game creators because this one guy was a jerk, and he has no idea what he's saying, and that's why he's like interrupting himself mid-sentence. He's just spouting nonsense, and I think we all just need to ignore Joe Biden and be like, you crazy kooky old man, and move on.
Yeah, this is one of the things where it's like, I don't think he was talking about gaming as a whole directly in that statement, but the statement does show that he doesn't necessarily have the warmest thoughts towards video games.
Right.
But the part that just gets me is that, and this is why I put this in here, is the little creeps part, because he is so creepy. He's very creepy.
Right? Joe Biden's one of the creepiest old men.
So I found this video it was like a 2-minute clip on CNN. And the clip, to be fair, is trying to say that Joe Biden's not a creep. But in every clip, they show him like, but that's so creepy what he's doing. There's like one where I guess he's in Senate or Congress. The camera's too close to really see like what room he's in. But he's posing with like a dad who I think was in the military, the wife, and then the daughter. And he's like caressing the daughter's hair. He's trying to whisper into the little girl's ear. And then he goes in for a kiss, and she keeps like slowly moving away from him. And they're like, and the swear to God, the CNN video said, well, he's on camera, so he's not being creepy. What?
Oh my
That
god.
doesn't make any sense. So the guy's kind of creepy. And this is beyond the like her comment. So I don't know. It just irked me that like him of all people is going to call video game developers, at least that specific one, a creep. It's just, I don't know. It just set me off in the wrong way.
Yep. Just ignore it. As Greg Miller says, we just got to wait for all the old white men to die, and then everything will be right. And people will finally understand. All the people who don't understand video games and violence and that kind of stuff, like, they'll all die one day, and then it'll be great.
I like Steve Jobs has almost the same quote on this. He said this back in the 90s in a documentary called Triumph of the Nerds. And someone asked him, don't you think that the mouse and keyboard setup is going to be hard for some people to learn? And he's like, oh, absolutely. But death will solve that problem.
Next up, id Software. These actually stories are about Crunch. id Software crunched, quote, most of last year to hit delayed Doom Eternal dates, says Tom Phillips. Who is Todd Phillips? I feel like that's a character in something. Anyway.
That's the director of Joker and Hangover.
That's it. Yep. Tom Phillips from Eurogamer. Here he is again, Marty Stratton, in a different interview than previously discussed, explained how crunch works at Bethesda. Quote, it goes in phases. We'll have one group of people crunching, so the next group of people are teed up properly. As they get done, they may need to crunch a little bit. We really, truly do try and be very respectful of people's time and lives. We have very dedicated people that just choose to work a lot in many cases. It was nice because we want the game to be perfect. We want it to live up to our expectations and consumer expectations. I thought that was an interesting thing that I hadn't heard before in regards to crunch, how they kind of do it in waves or cycle on and off based on teams. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that... I'm sure they figured out a system, but I don't know how that logistically works when a game like... It's not, you can say, all right, we're going to work really hard on making great-looking trees for 2 weeks, and then we're going to work hard on AI for 2 weeks. Like, how do you cycle those people in and out? Is it a fraction of each team, and then they feel like
I'd imagine, yeah.
But then at that point, you're like, I'm the 2 out of 10 people on this team working on this really, really hard, and I feel like everyone else is not doing shit. But I don't know. That's an interesting little wrinkle there.
Yeah, we've talked about crunch so much now, but I did think this was a unique take on crunch. Like, if you're going to do it, I guess that's the best way to do it, is to not impose it on your entire team, but to kind of be like, hey, it's like a relay race. I take it some of the way, then you take it the rest of the way, then you take it the rest of the way. Still not great. I think Bungie's model is still the best, which is that they just, over the course of like 15 years, found out how to iron out crunch and just make it non-existent at the studio. And maybe this is their step towards it. But I do, again, and we'll talk about this in the next story too, this is now being openly discussed, and that's a good thing. Yes,
people are being aware, and that ties directly into this. IGDA gives official statement over recent CD Projekt Red crunch comment, says Dennis Patrick at GameRanks. Last week, CDPR announced a delay on Cyberpunk and the resulting crunch necessary to complete the game. The IGDA, which is the International Game Developers Association, responded and said, quote, work-life balance is critical for the mental health of developers, and studios should consider the well-being of their employees when determining a new release date. Gamers have become more aware of the pressures on game developers, and they are more understanding of delayed launches. Continuing, it says, a studio as massively successful as CDPR would hopefully have the means to support a longer development cycle to reduce crunch. While they have previously noted their crunch periods are not mandatory, the pressure to crunch is strong just from supporting longer hours, and even stronger when directly asking developers to work nights and weekends. As you exactly said, like, people are aware of crunch, and they're aware that it's the effect that it has on the people who make their games that they love. And as this calls out, like, we're more understanding now. You want to delay Cyberpunk for a few months? Great. I totally get it. I'm not upset. I'll play it when I play it. And I think just having this discussion is part of that. I would love to see where there is no crunch and everybody's happy and we still get our games in a timely fashion. But that doesn't seem feasible right now. This is a good alternative. Just like everyone talk about it and we're all aware of it.
The first step to fixing anything is acknowledging there's a problem.
That's right.
I was thinking, because I was watching the footage of Doom Eternal just before we recorded, and which, by the way, everyone's saying who has played the first 3 hours, this is fucking amazing. I'm so pumped.
Yeah.
Oh my
we
God.
Talked about this on Pixel Street podcast too. It was like, for the first time, I think I might be excited to play Doom Eternal.
It looks good. So I was thinking about how I think it's kind of like a dual responsibility between the developers, but also the consumers. We need to be more forgiving of little bugs and stuff when a game comes out. It doesn't mean the studio is awful and terrible and makes a bad game. It just means these games are really complicated because they want to keep up in the ante to give us amazing experiences. And I think the developers need to find that balance of like, okay, we need to delay this game to iron out some bugs, but we need to be forgiving of some of that stuff if we're going to, move forward. But I think a part of like what the studios could do to kind of help with that too is acknowledge the bugs that they know are there. Like maybe as the game comes out and people are talking about them, and just making statements of like, we know these bugs are here. We are working on those bugs. And they probably couldn't give like a timetable on like when those bugs will be ironed out, because sometimes those things can be hard to figure out because it's more about finding out the mistake in the logic as opposed to finding like a spelling error. It's usually not a spelling error. It's usually a gap in logic. So I think it's just a dual thing where, they need to talk about it, but we need to be, forgiving to some of these companies at the same time.
I think that's a cool strategy you bring up, is to be transparent about what you know is broken in your game on launch. Because I think about like Sony's strategy with name changes on the PSN, and they're like, listen, we've been working really hard and you can change your name now, but we know it's going to break these few things in a few games. And if you're okay with that, go ahead, change your name. And there are a few games that we don't really know what it's going to break, but there's a possibility. Here are those few games. And then these are the games that we know it's going to work perfectly fine with. And I think as long as you're transparent, people can make that decision for themselves, whether I want to buy this game at launch, knowing that if I walk through a doorway in some house on a mountain, then I might freeze and lose my save file. But I think one thing that most people don't realize is that, yes, there's a rigorous QA process, and yes, that you as the early adopters become that QA test process, because there's no way they can actually find all the bugs themselves with the limited fan base or limited base of employees that are in there. But that, yes, things do ship. Software ships from every developer on every system, every operating system. Software ships with bugs that are known, and they know that there's not a fix for them right now. Not even games,
software. Like
software in general.
Yeah.
There are things like, we know this is broken if this happens. We don't know how to fix it yet, but we know it's broken. And if publishers can get in the habit of just being a little bit more transparent, and I don't want to say that it's about humility. It's not like their ego's so big that they don't want to acknowledge their mistakes or something like that. But like, if they can get in the habit of just being upfront with people and saying, yeah, we know there are some broken things. Now, if you go like the route of like Bethesda with Fallout 4 being incredibly buggy, or how like Skyrim when it launched on PS3 was literally unplayable, that's a little egregious. That's too far. You just like, hey guys, listen, you can buy Skyrim for $60 right now. You can't play it, but we'd love to take your money. Like, that's too far. But yeah, I think being transparent on that kind of stuff could be helpful as well. How did we get to that from this story?
Obviously, it's on my mind.
Yeah, your segue was beautiful, whatever it was, because it felt so natural.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Speaking of things that are going to hopefully ship not buggy, Valve says Half-Life Alyx is done, so you probably don't need to worry about delays, says Matt Wales at Eurogamer. People were concerned that, like, oh man, it's not even got a date in March. It's just generally March, which is now like 5 weeks away. Is it going to be delayed? Is it going to be the next one that gets hit? Turns out, no, it's pretty much done, and they're exactly where they need to be. Speaking of, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say, it'd be really cool if they never gave it a specific date. It just kind of said, like, why don't I launch it today? And then just, like, randomly launched it. That'd be awesome. That'd be the best way for them to release this game. Just surprise people. Just
totally Apex it. Although Apex it didn't say anything about. Moving on to our main quest, which is, what is the next delayed game? Holden, this comes from a subscriber interrogative from Dustin, what did you say? Epinephrine. Dusty Epinephrine Hill. All right. What game is going to be delayed next, says Dusty on Twitter. Holden, you wanted to take this in a slightly different direction. I'm going to give you the mic because we share one microphone across the United States. I'm going to give you the mic and let you talk.
Before I talk, though, do you have a game in mind that you want to share first?
Here's a fun thing. What's the next delayed game? I think it's Cyberpunk again. And I think this because I was reading something, I don't remember what it was, but it was an article about, like, there was a rumor that the reason for the delay is because they were having trouble getting Cyberpunk running well on the base PS4 and Xbox One models. And they push it to September, but if they can't get enough power out of those consoles to run it, then I think they have to make a decision like, do we just make this a next-gen? Like, we pitched it as a PS4, Xbox One game. Do we make it a next-gen game only? Or do we make it only a Pro or Xbox One X and higher title? And I think that's an interesting thing that they're dealing with now. And they, based on that, purely on that rumor article, like, this might have just been a stopgap to give themselves some time to figure out whatever that strategy is going to be. Mm-hmm. That's my thought, is that it'll be Cyberpunk a second time to accommodate for that.
Cory Barlog, the director of God of War, kind of actually retweeted that article and commented on it. Just said every game in the final months of development doesn't run well. So is it that it's just normal development issues, or is it that they really are having a legitimate problem and don't know how to get this game running on current gen systems? Which would be surprising to me, because I feel like that's something they would have ironed out, considering they made Witcher 3. They know what the system's capable of. I really don't know. But again, like, this game, it's so huge and massive, I wouldn't be surprised if it ran, much smoother on more powerful hardware than the base models. It would be, I think, a disaster for them if they just decided to make it a next-gen game at this point, considering how adamant they are in the news. Like, no, there's no plans for next-gen.
Right.
By the way, it's next-gen only. Oh, man, the shit show that would happen. That game would have to be miraculously good, which it might be, to make up for that. But a little part of me also goes, I would love for that game to be next gen. So
right?
Like, I'm fine with that. Yeah, so I was looking at the list of all the games that are coming out this year. Wikipedia, if you just doesn't know, always has a gigantic list of every game coming out in the year. And the last game on the list is like The Last of Us Part 2 in May. And there's literally nothing else outside of like Cyberpunk and Avengers in September. There's nothing else in all of June and July. And I can't remember, were we talking about this on the Pixel Street podcast? With maybe these consoles are, at least maybe the PS5 is going to come out in the summer? Because we know Xbox is coming out in the fall, but Sony hasn't.
I feel like I remember
said...
that discussion. I don't think it was Pixel Street. I think it was sometime else, though.
Okay. I know we had the conversation at some point. I'm thinking maybe these next-gen consoles are coming really early, in which case I don't really think anything's going to get delayed, but it's just something I noticed. I was looking at the list, because like, I don't know if anything's going to get delayed at this point. Anything that's in 2020 has kind of already been delayed to 2020.
Right. So
like, I don't know if they're going to do it again. If they're going to delay anything, it's going to be delayed again. And yeah, I think Cyberpunk's probably number one on that list to get delayed again. Maybe Last of Us Part 2, but I don't see that. But yeah, I know this is a total side tangent and isn't really related to your question. Sorry, Dusty. But maybe the PS5 is coming sooner than we think.
Do you think so? You think it's as early as summer? I mean, because I feel like it's normal for end of January for us not to know what's coming E3 and beyond. I feel like that's pretty standard for most years that we don't have an idea.
Sure, but I think we might not have like specific dates, but we still knew that like Fire Emblem, for example, was coming out in summer. We already knew that. Like there were games that we knew were coming in that time frame at least. In this, there's nothing. There's nothing at all. There's literally a gap between May and September. So I have no idea. And I think, like, even not talking about Cyberpunk, but even I think Square Enix has mentioned that the Avengers is going to be cross-generation because they're it's an ongoing game as service. So of course, they're going to carry that off the next generation. So like, maybe they don't mind being released after the console comes out. Who knows? And Cyberpunk is kind of like, well, we can risk it because people are going to buy this game anyway, so we don't mind coming out after the console comes out. Great games have come out after a generation technically has ended. It's not
God of War 2 released on PS2 after PS3 released.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not unheard of. I think it could happen. And another side of this too is thinking about the Switch. The Switch had their, like, in 2016, they had their, hey, here's a trailer for it, but we're not talking about it for the rest of the year. That was like October 2016. And then January, they said, hey, it's coming out in 2 months. And it came out in 2 months. And Sony has made us aware that PS5 exists. They've done that kind of initial Switch trailer part already. They just need to really show off the box and tell us when it's coming and what's going to be on it. And they could easily do that in February and then say it's coming in June. And that's why we're not going to E3, because we need to prep for that launch as opposed to prepping for E3.
What if they release it like the week before E3 and just eat everyone's lunch?
That would be, honestly, one of the greatest things ever.
That would piss off
in this industry.
So many games journalists who not only have to review the system and all the launch titles, but then also go to E3 and cover all of that for 24 hours a day.
And think about how it would totally pull the rug out from underneath Microsoft's feet. They're prepping to have this big E3 where they show off everything. And somebody's like, our console's already out.
Yeah. You don't have to listen to Xbox talk about it. You can actually go play a PS5.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe. So, Dusty, sorry I didn't answer your question at all, but your question led me on that path. So thank you for that question.
Oh, inspiration. Great. If you would like to write in, go to Twitter and tweet at @RespawnAimFire. We would love to hear your questions. We would love to hear about what you ate for lunch today, as long as it doesn't have nuts in it, because you have to be thinking about the public and their nut allergies. And we're going to wrap up today's episode with Game on Game Show. The Game on Gaming Show, where we play a game called Game on Game Show. Game. I don't remember what that is anymore. I like the last 3 weeks haven't gotten that right, but maybe I'll go back and listen.
Right to me.
It's not right. It's not. I know it deep in my heart. We're going to return to a segment we haven't done in a while called Now Flesh It Out. Now Flesh It Out. And we have 5 pairings of 2 different types of games, 2 different game franchises or whatever they are. And we have to try to brainstorm what that game might look like. If we were to mash up these 2 titles, what might that look like? Hold on, I've got 5 pairs. Are you ready for number 1?
No.
Great. We'll start with number 2, Galaga, crossed with Farmville. Farmville, if you're not familiar, is that farming simulator on Facebook.
I already know exactly what this game is.
Oh,
it's
you
the
do?
Inverse of Galaga. Just like you inspired me so much. It just immediately popped in my head. It's the opposite of Galaga. You are controlling the spaceships that are coming down the screen.
Okay.
And you're farming them and making them in like a Farmville way. Like, I need to make these ships so I can send them down. And the better you get at that, the more you're going to overwhelm who would be the main player in the regular Galaga game. So you win by overwhelming that main player.
So you're kind of like cultivating the clone pilots that are going to be piloting these ships, and you're like raising them and like feeding them biomatter that's like just gel, and then you send them out to die.
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh,
you never know what's going to happen.
Interesting. I like that idea so much that I think that's just what I'm going to go with too. The only alternative would be like, I don't know, you're just blowing apart cows in space.
That also sounds like fun. Why are all these cows in space? It doesn't matter. They're there.
No, just shoot them. They're on the fucking roof. Oh. We'll deal with the body in the morning. Throw it into the trees.
You're quoting Schitt's Creek?
No, I'm quoting Season 8, Episode 1.
I love that show. That's such a funny show.
Of Portlandia. I cracked up about it during game night a couple weeks ago, and then I rewatched it. It's the one where the women and women first are in a cabin, and there's an infestation of horses everywhere.
Oh, I remember that now. I haven't seen that episode, but I do know Women and Women's First. That's probably one of the best ongoing skits.
You need to watch it. It is so good. Next up, number 1, Crazy Taxi, crossed with Halo.
Here's the most boring version of that game possible. You are just a regular soldier in Halo. We're the mercenary. Are the mercenaries? Is it the Marines? I don't even know. It's the Marines, okay. And you're just in a warthog, and you just got to wait for Master Chief to like do his thing outside of a building, and then he comes out and you drive him to the next spot where he shoots stuff. And you just wait in the car while he shoots stuff. So you just like from this distance, you just see stuff going on.
Playing threes and
exactly, yeah.
I would play this as like a you pilot the infantry ships of the enemies, like all of the grunts and things like that, and when they fly in over top and they drop down like 20 on the battlefield at a time and then they fly off, like that's you. You're the person piloting that ship, and you've got to go pick up a bunch of grunts in one place, and you're like, fuck, Master Chief is headed to the library. We got to get all the flood to the library. And then you got to go pick them up and deliver them in time so that they can fend off Master Chief. I think that would be a cool game.
It'd be a very cool game. It's
Next
better
up.
than Halo Wars.
Right? Fuck that game. Just kidding. I've never played it. I'm not a strategy person. Rainbow Six Siege.
Wait, before you go on, if they make this game, they have to give it the worst name ever, which would be Crazy Halo. I just the developer say, like, we are so excited to bring to you Crazy Halo. We've been working on it for several years now.
Crazy Halo. And everything has googly eyes. Crazy Halo. Yes, please. Rainbow Six Siege crossed with Overcooked. This is a tough one.
Okay, so this is a tough one, but ask yourself this. You're playing Overcooked. You're in the kitchen, but what's happening outside the kitchen? What's happening in the restaurant itself? Is this an area that might need to be protected? So you are playing Siege and regular multiplayer map, but the secure location you have to secure is a restaurant. You have to make sure that no one eating their food gets a bad customer service experience by having some terrorists come in and shoot them. So you just got to defend the restaurant. You also have to be the waiter. You also have to bring the food that's been prepared in the kitchen to each guest at the same time. That sounds like hectic mayhem.
It does.
That a real cop would really do.
I feel like in a similar fashion, it is just the kitchen, not the rest of the restaurant or anything like that. It's just the kitchen, and you're preparing the food, and whatever it is that you have to prepare this time attracts a certain type of enemy.
Ooh.
So if you're making cheese fondue, then there are giant rat people who are trying to break into the kitchen and get your cheese. And so you've got to all right, we've got to set all the rat traps. We got to board up the windows and all that kind of shit. And we got to have some people constantly stirring the cheese so that it doesn't burn on the edges of the pan, while some people are over there just killing the rats once they're in the traps. I think
that's
could be
it.
Yeah,
that's absolutely it. Yeah.
And any kind of meat would be like zombies. And Oh, okay.
But you're the cooks too, right? You're also the cooks. You're also making all the food.
Yes, all five of you. And there are different operators. Some of them are better at cooking certain things. Some of them are better at trapping certain types of enemies.
So you'll basically have as your characters, you'll have sous chef, the Debbie chef, all that other stuff.
Yes.
And on top of that too, you don't have actually utensils. What you do is if you want to say, stir the pot, you just put the barrel of your gun and stir in there. That's how it works. That's what you got to do.
Yep.
Because you got to make sure your gun's always ready. So it just becomes your cooking utensil as well. Got to cut something in half, shoot it down the middle.
Shoot it down the middle.
Can you shoot these vegetables for me? I need to make a salad.
Number 4, The Witcher 3 crossed with Spyro the Dragon.
A version of Spyro where I walk around a world going, man, this is really beautiful. Guess I'll never play any more of it. That's what it is.
I want it to be a realistic, beautiful version of Spyro. You are this realistic looking dragon, and you were going around hunting people. Hunting dwarves that are trying to get your treasure and shit like that. And you were just going around just eating people and just destroying them, leveling up your dragon. You learn all sorts of cool new fire techniques, and you can blow smoke rings and shit. And then it just turns into a vaping simulator, and you just do different types of plumes. That's it. A realistic dragon vaping simulator.
It's revolutionary. There's never been a genre like it before.
Yeah.
The very first realistic dragon vaping simulator.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Remember, kids, vaping is bad. Don't vape.
Don't vape. Don't do it. That's gross. Finally, oh no, I just wrote the same game twice. Well, I guess we can still talk about it. Number 5, Fire Emblem Cross a Garbage Can. I mean, it's literally the same thing twice, but we can talk about how that might, I don't know, maybe it levels up the experience if you have 2 of them.
So here is exactly what this game's going to look like.
Yeah, okay.
So you have, it's kind of you have a grid map, and you move your characters around that map. They might have
Yeah.
like swords or like axes or spears. And when you attack the other enemies, like if you have a sword, that's going to be good against axes. But if you have a spear, that's going to be good against swords. And then it's
Like
just
rock,
like,
paper,
you know,
scissors.
it's called,
Okay.
yeah, we could call it Fire Emblem.
Dope. Dude, what if there was like your character dies and it's like permanent, like you can't get him back?
Perfect. Let's put it.
Yeah.
Let's put it in there.
Oh, and then let's make the series all about, or the game all about having like 3 different houses, and then let's also call it 3 houses, and then put a 4th house in there.
And make everyone replay the whole game again to experience that DLC content.
Yeah.
This sounds great.
Yeah. Fucking nailed it, dude. Fire Emblem cross a garbage can. Perfect. That's it for Game on Game Show, and that's it for our episode this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what we do, you can go to Respawn Aimfire. This is Patreon at patreon.com/Respawn Aimfire. Got the order mixed up there of the names on this website and the jello and the pudding. Patreon.com/Respawn Aimfire. Give us $1 or more. Don't acknowledge the Cosby reference. $1 or more. You can play along with us on game nights once a week, on Thursday nights usually. You can influence what we play each month with our backlog accomplishment of Respawn and Friends game, or BARF. We did The Last Guardian for the month of January, which we are going to be talking about in a couple days. Actually, we'll release them both the same day that this goes live, so Tuesday. And next month, the month of February, you all voted for, hold on, I assume you're looking it up, whatever it is right now.
I think
The
it's
February
Banjo-Kazooie.
BARF game is...
You don't need a drum because it's going to take me a second to get there. Posts. February BARF. Banjo-Kazooie.
Banjo-Kazooie, playable on the Nintendo 64 Entertainment System or the Xbox One backwards compatibility or Xbox 360 regular compatibility.
It's in Game Pass.
It is on Game Pass too? Cool.
It's on Game Pass, yeah.
Here's my opportunity to finally 1,000 gamer score this. I played this once whenever I first got my Xbox One S. No, I played it back on Xbox 360 when I was borrowing Tom's 360. And I did everything required for the 1,000 gamer score, but there were 2 jiggies in it that I got them in the game and could no longer get them again, but they didn't register as gotten in the game.
Oh.
So I was 2 jiggies short. So this is my opportunity to 1,000 gamer score, which doesn't sound anywhere as cool as a platinum trophy, but perfect. Banjo-Kazooie on your Xbox or on the Nintendo 64 or on the N64 Classic when it comes out this month too. Just kidding, that's not real yet. And finally, if you're a patron, you get dope wallpapers, which should be coming out any day now as soon as I think of it and make it. And then finally, that's it. That's fucking it, everyone, okay? What else do you want from us? Jesus Christ. We're going to sign off tonight. Here's our usual sign-off. Thanks again for listening. Here's our usual sign-off. We haven't talked about me peeing recently, have we? I feel like it's been a while since I've had to pee. That'll be our sign-off tonight. I have to pee.
Okay, I miss talking about you peeing. It's
Yeah.
my favorite conversation. Bye.